Hey, happy Friday. This week the European Union demonstrated that they really love USB-C. Apparently Xiaomi and Huawei got caught red-handed doing nasty stuff, except they didn't, and the European Union also demoed their first ever homegrown processor. And our quiz this week is all about the tech media, where you have to recognize iconic catchphrases from your favorite tech YouTubers, figure out which tech media company broke which big story, etc. See how many of the 20 questions you can get right. Links are in the description, and welcome to the Friday checkout. Okay, there were a ton of new releases this week, and my highlights start with Amazon, who released 3 new Kindle Paperwhite e-readers, Facebook, who released 2 new Portal-branded video calling device thingies. I can't believe that these are still a thing. Then the Chinese phone brand Meizu, who apart from releasing new phones, also released a mechanical keyboard with a panda theme. That's an amazing product strategy, I love it. HP announced a budget Windows tablet with a flippy tilty selfie camera, an optional portrait orientation, and an Intel Pentium Silver chip for some reason, ouch. And finally, of course, the big event of the week was Microsoft's grand Surface reveal. The Duo fixed most of the obvious shortcomings of the original, such as having a proper chip and better cameras now, although I doubt that a lot of people will still want a dual screen form factor now that even the price and durability benefits versus foldables have basically disappeared. The Pro 8 looks much nicer and has a higher refresh rate screen, though my Pro 7 had trouble keeping up with even just 60 frames at times, so I'm curious how the 8 will handle 120 this year. And finally, the Laptop Studio now comes with a brand new form factor for Surface devices. We've seen other brands try this before for like a decade now, and I feel like this form factor never really became popular, but maybe Microsoft's execution will be much better and I'd love to try one. Anyway, there were a ton more interesting releases this week, so to see all of them, check out the release monitor in the Crowd app. Links are in the description. Okay, and my first story of the week will be the European Union proposing a mandate to make USB-C the standard for all wired charging on all portable devices, basically. This rule still has to pass a final vote, although it looks like it will probably do that just fine. It covers the physical ports on the devices themselves only, and it extends beyond just mobile phones to also include tablets, digital cameras, headphones, headsets, handheld video game consoles, and portable speakers, but not the really tiny stuff such as earbuds, smartwatches, and fitness trackers. Those can apparently do whatever they want. The proposal also mandates that the device makers will have to offer at least an option to buy these devices without a charger in the box for consumers who already have USB-C chargers. And if a charger offers fast charging, it must support USB power delivery at least as an option, and will have to display the power delivery charging specs on the box too, so they are all cross-compatible. Now, device makers can still offer bundles optionally where the charger is included in the box, and they can also include their own fast charging tech next to USB power delivery as well, as long as the two don't interfere. But the option for no charger and USB-C power delivery has to be there. Also, just to be clear, the rules only cover wired charging and not other areas like data transfer or display out, for example. So stuff like Thunderbolt that work with the USB-C standard or other ports like HDMI are completely unaffected by the rules, and so are wireless chargers as well, of course. Plus, the regulator specifically says that they will make timely adjustments to the standard to keep it up to date in the future if needed, whatever that means. And I've been thinking a lot about whether this will be a net positive at the end, or if this is basically government overreach that will primarily just hinder innovation. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like this is a net positive. See, I think charging ports have kind of matured and reached a sort of plateau with USB-C. Physically speaking, now that they are reversible, I don't think they could get significantly more convenient or compact or reliable or anything else in the next decade or two. Plus, it is a flexible port, so lots of innovation can happen within it, which is why I think that setting this as a standard won't be a big loss in exchange for less waste and better compatibility, in my opinion. It is unusual that governments would get to decide about something as specific as ports on our devices, but then the more I thought about it, governments have also standardized things like electric sockets and a lot of other stuff that were in private hands and unstandardized before, and those turned out just fine. So I think this is not really unprecedented, and I think it will go probably just fine. And while everybody says that Apple will be hardest hit by this, device makers have 24 months to adjust at least, and I bet that by then Apple will have completely portless iPhones, so I don't think they'll really care at the end either. I think the regulation overall makes sense, even if it does feel weird, but let me know how you feel about it down in the comments. Okay, and my second story will be news that was all over my feeds this week about the Lithuanian Defense Ministry urging people to throw away their Chinese phones, with probably the dumbest arguments I've heard so far. So the ministry investigated many different phones, and they specifically found spooky issues with Xiaomi regarding censorship and Huawei regarding security. What could those issues be? With Huawei, they found that phones like the P40 put users at risk of cybersecurity breaches. How did they do that? Well, believe it or not, the Huawei app gallery directs users to, wait for it, third-party e-stores like F-Droid or Aptoid that could theoretically be dangerous. And that's it. Note that Huawei isn't pointing to malware or anything else themselves, just to third-party app stores in general. What? I mean, first of all, why did they need an actual investigation for this? It's literally Huawei's official company policy. And second, how is that like a cybersecurity breach? They were literally kicked off of the Play Store, so just linking to third-party app stores doesn't seem that nefarious. And the Xiaomi complaint is pretty dumb too, in my opinion. Here they are saying that basically Xiaomi's OS technically includes filters for sensitive terms like Free Tibet or Long Live Taiwan Independence that Xiaomi's system could theoretically block. As the report points out, these aren't actually active outside of China, but they could be enabled remotely if needed. Spooky. Except, again, is it? I mean, it's the most common thing in the world that an OS maker that has a global portfolio has to turn some features off in some market and some features on in other markets. Like, they have to have this in China and they don't have to have it outside of China, which is what they're doing. Like, did you know that Google Maps has like 50 different versions where the borders change depending on which country you're looking at them from? And they could just switch those around in your region at will, remotely. Gasp. Or look at this screenshot that a user tweeted at me just this week, saying that they got an update from Samsung on their phone that includes the ability for Samsung to remotely install apps that the Russian government now mandates in Russia by law. Of course, those never actually got installed on his device because he isn't in the country, but drama. Geography-based feature flags are a super common thing in software development. And sure, we can debate whether software companies should have the power to remotely flip features on and off on your device or not, but that's a debate for another video maybe. However, a government telling you to throw your phone away because of one, that's just silly. Now, if you don't want a Chinese phone over security concerns, I think that is reasonable. I have a Samsung phone in part because of that. But this particular report is just blowing hot air and really shouldn't have been taken seriously by the likes of the BBC and many others. Okay, and my third story will be that the European Processor Initiative has just managed to create the first ever functioning RISC-V chip called the EPAC. So the European Processor Initiative is a collaboration of various European tech companies and academic institutions that the EU has put together to build a bunch of chips together as a collective with as much EU tech as possible, and this is their first actual physical chip sample. They made a bit over 100 units, and just for testing for now, and all it did was print "Hello World," though since this is the EU, it of course did so in 70 languages, and it pointed out that the answer to all questions is 42, correctly, but the goal of the processor is to eventually become a proper high-end processor used in server farms and cars, for example, to give the EU some real chip independence. RISC-V is an open architecture that other governments from Russia to China and even India are experimenting with as well. The IP for the European chips came from various universities and companies like Semi Dynamics and Fraunhofer Institute, and it was fabbed in Germany by Global Foundries using the 22nm process. Now, Global Foundries is of course an American company, but close enough, I guess. And there is a real question about whether government-led projects like this have any chance of surviving or being competitive at all on the real market. The kind of positive example that people like to bring up is that of Airbus, where the European governments got together and created a conglomerate of industry players as well. That worked out quite well, so maybe it will work out for the EU this time as well, maybe not, but I'll be sure to keep an eye on it. Okay, that's it for this week. To wrap up, be sure to take the Tech YouTuber and Media Trivia Quiz to see how much you know about the tech media, and if you haven't checked out the Crowd app yet, maybe do so now. It's a community that I've built with my small team specifically for tech enthusiasts like yourself. It shows you all of the newly released gadgets, it lets you review the tech that you own and find trustworthy reviews from other techies like yourself, plus it comes with all of our weekly quizzes built in too. Links are in the description, and I'll see you next Friday.